This is the Todd Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode number 43. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire. I'm the founder and the director of the Todd Capital Investment Club that has over 200 members. Also the founder of Todd Acquisitions that purchased our first property last month. And Todd Ventures, which is our venture capital firm that's looking to do some great things with some HBCUs and some young talent located at those schools. Thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this show is to share the stories of successful investors and business owners so that people can see that business and investing are the keys to financial success and generational wealth. With us today, we have Miss Kendra Barnes. Kendra is an economist by day. She's a real estate investor by night. She created the key resource to change the perception of what a real estate investor is supposed to look like. Before the age of 30, Kendra was able to amass a real estate portfolio of 7 units. She now owns 8 units and is currently in the process of buying 2 more. Her key message to anyone looking to buy real estate or a rental property is you don't have to hit the lottery or be left an inheritance to buy a property. You can start with what you have right now. Kendra was born in Virginia, raised in Texas, and went to undergrad at North Carolina A&T State University. She received her master's in agricultural economics from Purdue University before moving to Washington, D.C., where she currently resides. So with that, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I really liked where it said, you can start with what you have right now. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of where I want to start the interview is, what do you mean by that and how?
So there are so many ways to get into real estate investing that I don't think people realize. I mean, it's not easy, right? Because it's all about risk and reward, and you have to really learn, educate yourself, and really be motivated. But there are so many ways. Like there are ways to get like funding, non-traditional funding sources and things of that nature that people kind of overcomplicate real estate. And it's really because they don't know what exists. So yeah, people really have what it takes. If you're motivated and you want to get ahead, you can get into real estate. Like simple as that.
Nice. I definitely agree with the overcomplicating thing. That's one of the things I always tell people is like the hardest part is just doing it. What I found is like the hardest part is getting the property. And then once you have the property, like you can do so much.
Yeah.
Like you can resell it, you can sell or finance it, you can hold it and rent it, you can flip it. Mm-hmm. The hardest part is getting it. And then the world just opens up to you. It's like, now what do you want to do?
Exactly.
So how did you get started in real estate?
Really randomly. And I always tell people, like, especially like if anyone is listening to this podcast right now, they're starting out better than I did, because I didn't even know that young Black people were out there doing this. I didn't know it was possible. I didn't have any guidance, but I still started, you know what I'm saying? And I learned a lot along the way, but that's why my big message now is to really like have people start off better than I was. But my husband and I play cash flow. I know you know the game cash flow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like real estate on steroids, he calls it.
Yes, I love it. Like I don't even like Monopoly, but cash flow is my favorite game because it's really true to life. We played that, and literally like the next day we were looking for our first rental. We got a duplex, which we borrowed from our retirement to fund because we didn't know there was any other way to buy real estate than to get like a mortgage. And we didn't know about house hacking. And when the lender told us we had to bring 25%, we're like, where the heck are we going to get $50,000? So we borrowed from our retirement, which worked out beautifully for us, but I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. So that's how we got started.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more? Because I feel like for somebody to tap into their retirement, you had to be extremely motivated. Mm-hmm. You don't just what did the game really do that took you from kind of not really caring about real estate, maybe to like going 100%, pulling from the reserves to do it?
So before the game, it never even crossed my mind to invest in real estate. Ever, ever, ever. I mean, I think we're all told or sold this idea that we should go to college, get a degree, and work until we're like 78. And I just thought we were doing everything right. Played the game, and it was like, oh my gosh, I could retire early and like live this life I dreamed if I would just make smart investments. So that's what motivated us. But we pulled from retirement out of necessity. And really, once we looked at the terms, like when you borrow from your thrift savings plan as a government employee, you're really just borrowing from yourself and you're paying yourself back with interest. So it was like, well, it's our money anyway. And we felt like if we were doing this right and if our numbers were right, we would make more money on that money than it would be making sitting in our TSP. That's why I say it's not for everybody, because for us, retirement looks a certain way. You know, we have these plans, but like other people might want to be a little more conservative. And we also didn't know there were other financing options out there. We didn't know about capital partners. We didn't know about hard money lenders, you know, so that's all we knew to do.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that first deal? What did you buy it for? How did you end up, what did that deal look like?
Yeah, we found the duplex and it was like in an up and coming neighborhood. So we were thinking, this is great. I mean, really the neighborhood was still rough around the edges and it's still a little rough, but it was one unit was occupied, one unit was empty, which at the time the lender was telling us, if you live in one, you only have to bring 3.5% down. But I'm not going to lie, like I couldn't get out of my comfort zone because we lived in a really nice house. And I was like, I'm not moving in this 1-bedroom apartment. Like I'm not giving up my garage and my everything else we had. Now I would do it in a heartbeat, right? Because $50,000, you know, versus whatever the 3.5% is. But it was, I think it was $228,000 for the duplex in DC, which is a steal. Like if you know anything about DC prices. It had a tenant in one who moved out literally a week after we got the keys. And we were like, what do we do? Like, we didn't even know how to find tenants. Seriously, I'm telling you, we jumped into this. We're like, where do we look for tenants? Like, how do you advertise? Like, what's the rental rates? So we ended up doing Airbnb to make money, which was probably the best idea ever. We made crazy cash flow doing that. But like I said, we were just tripping over ourselves and like learning as we went.
So you kept it as a rental property. Well, and there's so much to talk about there because I like the idea of everybody that I've talked to on this show that has done well has started in some sense from multifamily property. Mm-hmm. And I think that house hacking is so key because you get the cash flow. Yeah, you get the appreciation, but you also in a lot of ways get to keep the majority of your working income. Yeah. And so if you can eliminate your housing expense, you can accelerate your wealth creation, like drastically. It's kind of like moving home with your parents, like, except you don't have parents.
I know. And I really couldn't get out of my comfort zone. But like now I realize to build wealth, unless you're already coming from a wealthy family, you have to get uncomfortable. Like you can't be out here like, I need my garage and this and that. Like, no, you got to get out here and do things that other people wouldn't do. So we didn't house hack on that one, but we house hack on our 4-unit. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we did Airbnb out of one unit. The other tenant moved out. We used that money from Airbnb to renovate the unit that the guy had just moved out of. And then we just got a full-time tenant in there once it was renovated. But honestly, Airbnb even though it was in like a rough neighborhood, we did really well. Like,
so what are some tips you would give to somebody who's looking to be successful with Airbnb?
Be very honest. We would tell our guests, you know, hey, if you are uncomfortable in urban environments, you know, and the moment we started telling people that up front, our reviews got way better. People like knew what they were coming into, and we got customers that were for us before we were trying to like put on this show, like come stay here and just hope they wouldn't leave us a bad review. Bad idea. So that's my number one tip. Like be completely honest about what your rental is.
So you have to kind of be authentic. I'm finding that's like a super hack. It's like when you're younger, they say, be yourself. And you're like, no, I want to be like Tyrone. He's super cool. Right. And you get older, you're like, man, like that's the ultimate cheat code is being me. There is no other me. Like I'm wasting all this time trying to copy somebody else.
Yeah.
So I think that I had this conversation on Twitter and somebody was talking about investing in bandos. And a lot of people, they don't want to invest in those neighborhoods, but almost every real estate investor that I've talked to has said that that's where the real money is. Mm-hmm. So how do you spot an area like that And then how do you house hack it? Like, how did you successfully like survive that area? Like, what did you do?
For our 4 unit or for the one we
Well,
actually house hacked? Well, we felt like the duplex would be a good investment because of like proximity to like public transportation. We kind of saw what the city was doing. So I say always look at like city development plans. What is the city planning out, even if it's 3 or 4 years out? Like, because when it comes to gentrification, like especially for DC, people are looking at those trends, and there are some pioneers who like go ahead and move into those neighborhoods, and once like one or two move in, then property values go up and people start moving. So we just looked at like future development plans.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you learn from the first deal that you took to your second and your third and your fourth, I presume?
We learned to like really plan out as far as when you're buying an occupied unit, you think like, all right, cool, I got this cash flow coming in, like this person, I'm set, but they could move out tomorrow. Like, you don't know, so have like plan A and B. We started researching like rental rates, which we did not do before. Like, you need to know, are you going to get enough rent to pay the mortgage and then some? Those are like two really big things.
Nice, nice. And so from the duplex, how did you acquire that fourplex?
We house hacked. So we rented out our single family house that we lived in. So that was like an automatic rental, which is another cool thing about like house hacking. If you already own a house, you get like an automatic rental out of, if you don't sell it, right?
So you mean you had the single family house, you guys kept that, then you went to the second house, and so now you had 3 units.
Yep. So we had a single family house that we lived in. We had the duplex. So we were running Airbnb, had another unit, you know, with a regular tenant. We moved out of the single family house, rented that out, moved into our 4 unit. So we got this 4 unit apartment building in DC, which is not cheap. And we were able to just bring 3.5% down by house hacking and using an FHA loan. And it was fully occupied, which is very interesting, like living with tenants. Have you house hacked?
No, not yet.
It's an interesting experience, but it's so worth it. You only have to do it for a year. So.
And so you guys did it for a year, and then you guys went on to the next opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Wow. So the flow of this might kind of slow down because I want to make sure I get good questions, and he's going to chop it up anyway. So
okay, it's okay.
I wanted to talk to you about, because I think that sometimes people downplay degrees, but I think that maybe being an economist helps you be a better investor. Do you agree? Do you think they're completely unrelated? Do you think that there's some benefit that you're deriving from that degree and that education and maybe your work experience?
No, the degree itself, no. But getting the degree, yes. I really honestly believe that college is really about perseverance. I don't know how often I actually use my degree, like even in my job. I believe that whatever you need to know, most of it you learn like on your job, right? But for me, grad school was so hard. I went to a historically Black college for undergrad, went to a predominantly white college for grad school, and I would never undo going to an HBCU ever. You could not give me $1 million right now to undo that. And I would love to have $1 million right now. But when I got to the predominantly white school, I was so behind as far as like my book knowledge that it was a huge struggle. I mean, I remember the first day of my math econ class, the teacher was like, oh, we're just going to go over a few things that you guys already know. Like, we're going to take 5 minutes and do this like big overview, but everyone knows this stuff. And at the end of the 5 minutes, I was like, I don't know any of that. All my classmates were like, easy, we did that like 3 years ago. And I'm like, so for me, like just that perseverance, because with real estate, I mean, there's a lot to learn, different things come up. So the degree, no, but like just the life lessons, yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to strike that question. No, I'm just kidding. I'll probably keep it. But that's cool because...
Where'd you go to school?
I'm sorry?
You went to a different school?
No, I didn't. Well, my undergrad degree is in finance.
Yeah.
And then I went and got a JD. And for what we're doing, I'm finding that like my knowledge of contracts really helps. And my knowledge of like corporate entities and all the different things that I kind of have been exposed to helps us do like some way more strategic stuff.
Okay.
So I didn't know if you being an economist, because I've talked to some people who had degrees in economics. Juan Pablo, I think, has a degree in economics. And he's like super out there, like super smart dude. You're super smart. So I was like, maybe there's a correlation between the two, but maybe.
No, my husband though, he's a contract specialist. And so yes, he's like a contract genius and he's really the numbers guy and all that. So even though I'm an economist, like, no. No. So yeah, you can strike it. But anyway.
Well, I think that it's good that you brought up your husband, because I think that one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is how you guys are on the same page.
Oh, yes. That's a good one.
Sometimes, because marriage is a partnership, marriage is a team effort. So how did you guys get to be on the same page? And then what are the benefits of working together as a team?
It's so interesting because someone just asked me this the other day, and we're really fortunate because I think a lot of times the issue in marriage is one person is growing faster than the other or matures faster, right? And the other person is left in the dust. And I'm like, what if we had played that game and I had been like, I want to invest in real estate. And he's like, no, I'm good. Because if you think about it, like the way we were living, we were very comfortable. We were successful. I mean, we have great government jobs. We did not need to invest in real estate. We didn't need that money at all. But it just so happened that we both were inspired and we both have been so, like, we love this. Like, we're like so pumped up. We talk about real estate like all the time. So it is unfortunate if it happens where two people aren't on the same page, but we just jumped into it together and like, we love it.
Do you think that's because you guys both played the game at the same time, or?
Maybe, I don't know.
Because I'm super huge Kiyosaki, and I found that Kiyosaki's kind of made me crazy, in that like I just see the world completely differently. And everybody that I've ever heard talk to, like on Bigger Pockets, they're like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. After I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, like my life changed. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what happened with me, where I don't really see too much value in a job, but I see a huge value in assets. I see a huge value in buying things that cash flow or appreciate or pay me every single month. But if somebody has never really read that book, they're still thinking with the same mindset of like, oh, I got to get a raise. Oh, I need to get another degree. Oh, I need to make this happen for me because then I can get a new car. And it's like, I don't really care about that. And I think I heard you talk about frugality. And I know that I'm really big on frugality. And I don't know if that's something that you guys are into, but if so, can you kind of touch on how, even though you're making good money, even though you're doing well financially, why are you still frugal?
Because we haven't reached our ultimate goal. And so we've set a goal for ourselves, like we need this much in the bank for us to retire, right? But like, if you think about it, we own over $1 million worth of real estate, but we drive one car. We only have one car, and it is not a nice car. Like, it's old, it's not name brand. So I think where we go wrong, like as people, we get this certain amount of money, we make this, this cash flow or whatever, and then we go out and live a lifestyle that matches it. But we're like, no, we're still working towards that. So yeah, we drive this one car, and it's just not what people would think. Yeah.
But you still feel successful. It's like you're not out there feeling like, because it's like what you can afford if you wanted to afford it.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So I'm like, you can drive that nice car if you want to, but I'm about to buy another property, so.
Exactly. Do you guys have kids yet?
No, we don't have any kids together. My husband does have a daughter from his previous marriage, but no, we don't have any kids together, and we're still on the fence about it. Together, we're on the fence together, though.
So what are your goals for the future? You've acquired a lot of properties using FHA financing. Are you guys looking to kind of repeat that process over and over and over again?
No, we're starting to look into like other forms of financing, getting some capital partners. We finally convinced my parents, who are really old school in thinking, to be one of our capital partners. Like, they have the money, but they're kind of of the mindset like, why don't you guys just retire when you're like 89? I'm exaggerating, but they're just, they were worried for a long time that we were acquiring too many properties too quickly. We're doing too much. And I think it's like that old school way of thinking, like, you have this good government job. Like, isn't that enough? No, it's not enough. Not for us.
So you guys moved to Texas, right?
We did.
And so you still own your properties in DC. How are you managing those properties?
It's been a lot of like trial and error. We have a really good team like on the ground. We still self-manage. So like all the administrative work we still do ourselves, but we have like repair people, maintenance guys. People keep telling us get a property manager, but we don't really see the value. We're like, skip the middleman. If a tenant has an issue, they call us, we call a repair person. And honestly, most of our tenants are so easy, like we never hear from them. But the tenants in our 4-unit, we hear from a lot. I think because we house hacked and because we lived there with them, it's just like they feel like they should call us for every little thing because we used to be so like within such a close distance proximity, and they could like reach out and touch us. So that's been something to really shake. It's been hard to shake.
Do your tenants know that you're the owner, or do they know? Do they think that you're just the landlord or the property manager?
We should have told them we were just a property manager. They knew we were the owners, but I actually like that too because the tenants in that building were Section 8 tenants, and like to have their kids know that, hey, like look at this young Black couple, look what they're doing, like we can do this. So it was really powerful for us to like set an example. But yeah, they knew we were the owners. So like literally like knocking on the door. We had to like set times, like office hours, like look, unless it's an emergency, you can't knock on our door at 10 o'clock at night.
I think that's really cool that you guys are an example. I mean, I always tell people that's the purpose of this show. It's like, just like at one point in time, you didn't really know that there were young African-American property owners. I mean, for the most part, until Twitter, or not Twitter, but Instagram, like you didn't know it was that prevalent. Like I didn't know of the Aisha Seldins, or we're out there and there's people doing big things.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool that you guys were that force and that presence for those kids, because I think it's important to see things. Like you become what you see. You see a bunch of rappers, you tend to want to become a rapper, not because like you are born with the DNA to want to become a rapper, but because that's what you see. You want to be successful. You want to have nice things. So they see you guys living the life, and maybe they might not be as successful. Maybe they'll be more successful, but at least they'll know it's possible.
Exactly. That's all I want. People to know it's possible.
So it sounds like you guys are investing strictly in multifamily property. Where do you see the opportunity in this market right now?
Multis are really cool because even though real estate is risky, you can kind of like hedge your risk, because if one unit's empty, at least you have that, if the numbers are right, you have that cash flow. But no, we just bought a condo, our first condo, first cash purchase, first purchase in Maryland. There was a lot of firsts on that one, which was probably our easiest. It's probably been our easiest investment yet, because it already had a tenant. We love buying properties with tenants in it, I guess. But yeah, already had a tenant. He's a really, really good tenant paying really good rent.
So why did you guys choose that property? And what's the strategy with that? Just to hold it and cash flow it?
That one was kind of random. A friend of a friend had this property for sale. She and her husband just retired of being landlords. There was nothing wrong with the property. Didn't need any repairs. The tenant is really fantastic. They just wanted to get rid of it, and I think just get rid of the debt. So the opportunity presented itself, and we just bought it cash, and just getting that cash flow. Yeah.
So you guys looking to stay invested in that Maryland, DC area? Or are you looking at some properties in Texas as well?
We haven't really been looking at Texas. This market in Texas is crazy. Like literally just buying the house that we live in now almost took us out the game, because have you ever invested in Texas at all?
No, but I've heard a lot about Texas. I'm in California, so like anything compared to California is amazing, but apparently Texas it has its spots. Or can you tell us, what do you mean about Texas?
It's tough. It's very competitive, and there's like, you basically lose $200 every time you go under contract for a house in Texas. You have to pay this. Do you guys do that in California?
No.
And then what we were finding is because the water table is so high in Texas, which we didn't know was an issue, like so many houses out here have like foundation issues. And it was just, well, we're in Fort Worth, Dallas area. So I'm not saying all of Texas is like this, but there were just so many things. But no, we actually are looking to invest in Jacksonville. Have you heard of Hood Estates?
No. Yeah, I've heard of Hood Estates. Yep.
Yeah.
I have.
They're doing it in Jacksonville is phenomenal. Like they're literally about to buy up like all of Jacksonville. So we want to get in on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Last time I saw something by them, they bought like this huge like hotel, or they were in the process of buying that hotel. I'm not sure what happened with that deal, but that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, they're doing it. Mm-hmm.
Weren't they were a part of your summit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit about the summit and what you guys, I guess, talked about there without going into too much detail, without giving away your content?
No, it's fine. I'm so excited because people would always come to me at the Key Resource saying like, hey, what about flipping? What about like buying tax deeds? And I don't know because I'm a buy and hold investor, right? And most investors you talk to have their way of doing it. And I mean, you'll find investors that do a little bit of everything, but I wanted to bring people together so they could talk about the different forms of investment to let people know, like, you can get in on real estate. There's not one right way to do it. You just got to figure out which way is best for you. And what I thought was so cool about it was pretty much everyone on there except for me and the investor that's in California were giving people ways to get into real estate with no money, like using other people's money. Wholesaling doesn't require money. So it's just really cool just to kind of get different views. And like Charm City Buyers, they just bought an entire city block in Baltimore. Hood Estates, they own 80 units. Everyone on there is just phenomenal.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I saw some people that I knew on that summit, and I was like, those guys are familiar. I see those people a lot. So you have a program called the Key Resource. What is that, and what's the vision with that?
The vision is really just to let people know that this is possible. Like, my primary audience are Black millennials, and my goal is just to be an example and inspiration, showing them like, hey, you can do this. Like, nothing that I did to get here is impossible. Like, everything I did, you can do. Real estate investment is in reach. And I don't think people know that. And then once you realize it's possible, then you're like, all right, well, how do I start? So I try to provide resources that I wish I had when we started, and just kind of demystify this whole real estate investing process. But yeah, I love it. I like completely love what I do with the Key Resource.
Nice. So I'm going to circle back to properties with tenants. Some people say they don't like buying properties with tenants. You do, or you have done it. What are some benefits of buying property that already has a tenant in place?
Of course, that cash flow, if they're already paying. But let me tell you some questions that you have to ask. Have you ever gone over this on your show already? Have you already?
No. I had Juan Pablo, he buys properties with tenants, but we didn't dive in deep into this. And so that's why I wanted to kind of do it now. So.
Yeah, so buying properties with tenants is cool, but before we do, we always ask the current owner to see a rent roll. We want to see receipts, like how much are they paying? Are they paying on time? And you want to see proof of that, like not just somebody typing in an email. Like, we need to see ledgers, receipts, right? You want to know, are they on Section 8? Are they, non-voucher holders? Talk to the tenants if you can. Try to tour their properties. I mean, there are so many things that you should look at and look for if you're buying a property. Why is the owner selling? Like, if he has tenants in there, you know what I'm saying? So there's nothing wrong with it, but there are precautions you have to take.
Yeah, so have you guys created like a list and a system of all the questions you ask, or you just know what you need to ask?
No, I have a list. I actually have an entire ebook about buying an occupied rental because it can be tricky if you don't know what you're getting into, especially in DC, because the tenant laws are so friendly that it's nearly impossible to put someone out, even if they're not paying rent. Kind of like New York. I don't know if it's like that in California, but it's near impossible to put somebody out.
So what other ebooks have you written?
I have a house hunting guide, which is really cool. It kind of walks you through different questions to ask your real estate agent, like what to look for when you're looking at different properties, whether they have tenants in it or not. People don't really know the right questions to ask. You don't know what you don't know. So that's another good one.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that you said you have things written down in lists. That's one thing I'm trying to get my team done is like every time that we get into the due diligence period, it's like we want to check this. We're not walking through looking for problems. We're going through a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And so it either checks or it doesn't check. We're not just like, because you might miss something. It's kind of like that pilot situation. It's like the pilots, they go through, they have a checklist because you never know. You might get distracted. You might focus way longer on something else. And you might just miss something altogether. So it's good to have a system and a formula in place. So you said that you are buy and hold. I think that's because you're a Kiyosaki person. Because that's my strategy. It's like, I don't understand the idea. It might work for some people, the flip, the wholesale, but the idea of buying cash flow is just huge for me. It's like you go and you put the money up and the time period is forever. It's like the Warren Buffett. It's like my favorite holding period is forever. So why have you been buy and hold and how have you seen success? I don't even ask. What I really want to ask you is because you manage all these different properties. And so do you keep reserves on the sidelines to make sure that you can take care of debt service in the event of an occupancy or a vacancy rather, or like, how are you guys positioning your finances so you can still manage your portfolio and not have it super at risk in the event that something bad happens?
That's really good. Yes, we have reserves. Like we've actually had 2 units in our 4-unit building empty, like alternating for probably a total of 6 months, like maybe 3 months each. And we were still okay just because our cash flow is that good. We've been able to rent in DC is really high already, but especially in that neighborhood because it's so gentrified and because it's Section 8, which usually you get like top dollar for Section 8 tenants. I don't know if that's everywhere, but in DC. So if the market rent is like $2,000 to $4,000 in one neighborhood, Section 8 is going to give you 4. Like they're going to give you the top. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we have our reserves are good and we're able to still be okay if we have vacancies, but we don't like vacancies.
Yeah. I think it's funny because I was talking to Aisha Selden and it's like you always learn about frugality out of your working income, but then it's like you start applying frugality to your investment returns. Mm-hmm. So that allows you to continue to use your cash flow to reinvest and create more cash flow. Yeah. Or to maintain your cash flow so you don't lose it like people in 2008, 2009. So that's pretty cool. We're getting to the end. So what are your goals now that you have a substantial portfolio? You guys have great jobs. What are you aiming for now?
I'm aiming to now, with our next investment, replace my income from my job. We still have our savings goal for our retirement, like how much money we personally feel we need in the bank. And that's another cool thing about having cash flowing properties. You can have that number you need in the bank to retire, but it's going to keep getting replenished every year from cash flow. And if you don't have that, and not to down flipping, like flipping is cool because you make a lot of money, right, in a short amount of time. But what you do with that money is all that matters. You can make $30,000 in 3 months. That's nice. I can make $30,000 in 3 months with one property though. Like, so I don't know.
Without the day-to-day, it's less of a job.
Right. That's true. So, I don't know. I am a big fan of cash flow. It's so interesting though, because we're kind of trying to figure out one of our properties. We bought it. It already had 200,000 equity. Let me know. Okay. This is a question for you. I'm like asking you a question on your own. We bought the property before the area gentrified. It already had 200K equity. That's crazy, right? Mm-hmm. Literally the day we bought it, we already had 200K equity. It's gentrified. Property values have skyrocketed, so much so that now the condo building beside our 4-unit, one condo in that building is selling for the same price we bought the 4-unit for, right? Mm-hmm. So one condo is selling for the price that we bought.
Wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. And just in 1 year. So you can imagine if we sold it, how much we would get. But the cash flow is also really, really good. Mm-hmm. What would you do?
I think that one of the things that I learned from Aisha Selden is it's one thing to be an investor, but a goal is to be a disciplined investor. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to be disciplined and you have to stay by your strategy, and your strategy is hold.
Right.
And so I think you guys should just hold what you have. I really do. I think that ideally, if you have a 4-unit, the cash flow should be pretty nice from all 4 units if the property has appreciated around you. I think you just continue to stack the cash flow. Otherwise, I mean, you'll pull the money out and you have to look for another opportunity. It'll likely be an overvalued opportunity. And so,
Exactly, because that capital gains, in order to avoid it, you have to hurry up and buy something.
yeah,
Really, yeah.
it's
So
crazy because it's like you have that much equity, that much wealth that's right there, and it's tempting.
yes, but no, we're gonna hold it.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. I had a question. Man, it was. Oh, so for people who might be looking to use real estate to replace their income,
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to go about doing that? What does that look like for you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess the numbers would just have to work. That's not a good answer. But what exactly are you looking for?
Well, so I talked to Juan Pablo, and I guess he was talking to his mentor, and his mentor was like, "Hey, like, how much money do you need to leave your job?" Juan Pablo's a pretty colorful guy. He's a pretty cool interview, and he was like, "Well, maybe like 2,000, 3,000 a month." He was like, "Well, go buy a 10-unit property. If you cash flow $200 a door at 10 units, you've replaced your income."
Mm-hmm.
And so he went out and he bought 10 units and he retired himself. And of course, the way Juan Pablo looks at it, he said that it's not just the 2,000 because there's a lot of expenses that you don't really account for. Of course, you have like haircuts and going out to eat. And so it's like if you bare bones it, you actually need more than you think you need. But
right. And really, I guess I could quit now. It's just that I would need, especially since we bought that new condo and it's making a pretty good amount of cash flow. But I guess what you would have to do is change your lifestyle. Like, so right now we're living a certain lifestyle that my income is able to provide for us. And then we're stacking more money to buy another property. So it's always hard to like walk away because you're like, dang, if I just keep working, we get like, more properties. It's tough, but.
Yeah, I'm crazy because like, I think that while you have your health and while you're like making good money, it's like, why not just continue to make good money?
What, working for the government?
Yeah, why not just continue to work and then you just
because sanity is priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah. And happiness is priceless.
That's true too. And if you have 2 incomes, you still have somebody else bringing in income too.
Let him, he can work.
Yeah.
I'll just be here and manage the property.
Honestly, that's always been my goal. My goal, I always tell people, like, you use real estate to retire your wife. And so your wife can be retired. She can take care of the kids, but the man should still be out there getting it in. I have some questions from the crowd, I'll call it. I told people I was interviewing you, and so they had some questions. Some were a little bit repetitive, but I'm going to fire them off really quick. And
Okay.
ask you the closing questions, and then we'll call it a night. So what books do you recommend for the newbie investor?
Of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Let's come back to that question.
That's like one of my final questions too.
Okay.
Do you have any tips for young people around the age of 18?
Oh, around the age of 18. That is really good. So these are people going into college.
Yeah.
Save your money. I did not save my money. And oh my gosh, I would be in a completely different place. Like, I had so much money coming in college, and I literally graduated with nothing to show for it. I had a full ride. I had stipends. I had a work study. I had an internship every summer that was paying me very well. My parents were giving me money. I had credit cards my parents would pay the bill on. Graduated, no money, like not $1 in my savings account. Imagine if I had stacked up at least like one of those sources of income that was coming in. I could have bought a property out of college. Like,
so where did it all go on the lifestyle?
The lifestyle, happy hour and clothes.
Yeah. Happy hour and clothes.
Yeah.
So somebody wanted to know, how did you get started in investing if it's a predominantly or considered a predominantly male environment?
Yeah, I guess my husband and I got started together, and people do ask me like, would I have done it by myself? I still think so. Yeah.
Nice. Let's see. Somebody said, what software tools do you use? And then they said, what books do you recommend? So what software tools do you use?
If they're talking about like to collect rent payments and things.
Well, maybe just to manage the entire thing, to collect rent.
Mhm.
I use a lot of Thumbtack for like maintenance guys, but maybe like QuickBooks or whatever you're using to
No,
find tenants.
really old school. My husband is an Excel person. Like literally we have this Excel spreadsheet that it would give you a headache, like just looking at it. But we use like Task Easy to manage like our lawn care people. We use Cozy to collect rent. But no, we don't use QuickBooks or anything. We have a tax accountant, but besides that, Excel. We have like this 100-page Excel sheet. It's insane.
That's pretty cool. Very cool. Did you take any classes or seminars? I know before when you got started, you just kind of jumped in, but afterwards, did you kind of get some coaching, take classes?
I got my real estate license, but that's it. So I studied for that. I studied via the CE Shop. It's a really cool online platform. But I only got my real estate license for the key resource. I literally was like, I'm going to be up here like teaching people and sharing information in ebooks. I need to have some kind of like formal training. So I got my real estate license.
So you don't sell real estate, you just kind of have it in your back pocket.
And I do referrals, and I also have used it for our own, like I get the commission for our own properties.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's cool. Have you ever used it as like in negotiations, have you ever used that commission to make or break a deal, or you just?
No, not where it's made a break. No, not to make or break a deal.
Let's see. I think that's all the questions that I have from people on Twitter and Snapchat and all that good stuff. So last few questions is, what is your favorite book?
Shoot, I think I'm still gonna go with Rich Dad Poor Dad. But if I think of any others, I'll definitely I'll get back to you.
Rich Dad Poor Dad is my favorite book. And also, if you haven't read it yet, which I think you have, is the 10X Rule. I feel like 10X Rule and Rich Dad Poor Dad are like neck and neck for me.
I have to write that down. It's the 10X rule.
10X Rule.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna write that down right now.
Yeah, it's a really, really good book. That and Outliers is pretty good too. But
yes, everything he writes. I wouldn't think of that as a real estate book, but
no, not at all. But just a good book.
Good life book.
Let's see. What does wealth mean to you?
Wealth is definitely being able to live the life you want on your own terms. So wealth does not have to be attached to a number. You can be wealthy and own one property or 100 properties. Whatever will get you to be able to live life on your terms, that's wealth.
And is there anything that I didn't cover that you wanted to share with the people?
No, but whenever this is over, I'm like really interested in learning about what you do at, seriously, with your investment group. Is it over?
The last question is, where can people find out more about you?
Oh, okay. So they can find out about me on Instagram at The Key Resource. And once you go to my Instagram, like literally everything is there. But if you want to go to my website, the website is www.thekeyresource.info. But yeah, definitely check me out on Instagram. Like everything is on my Instagram page. So
very cool. So this is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire. We're doing some great things. We're looking at some more deals. If you have any interest in joining either of our clubs, email us at info@capitaltodd.com. I think that's about it for episode number 43. I'm excited for 2018. I think that great things are going to be happening for just African-American investors, business owners in general. Mm-hmm. So I'll see you guys on the next episode.